Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm just so excited to be a part of a conversation that is very, very dear to my heart, but also, I think even more importantly, critical to the future of this city and our country. You know, Einstein once famously said, "The formulation of the problem is often more essential than the solution." Yes, we need a new generation of leaders, but to lead to what? Yes, we need innovation, but what is it? Why is it important? And what does it have to do with education? How many of you believe we are well on the road back to economic recovery and to prosperity? Raise your hands. Let the record show I see maybe 20, no, maybe 40 hands. Well, the data at first glance looks hopeful, right? Only 7.3% unemployed, lowest number in 4 years or so. But when you begin to look beyond that one data point, at least I get scared. The percentage of Americans who have a job today or are seeking a job is the lowest it's been since 1978, 63%. And then the kinds of jobs that are being created are often minimum wage jobs in retail and service. Median family income has declined 10% in the last decade. Everybody says kids should go to college and that's going to solve the problem. But did you know that right now, the combined underemployment and unemployment rate of recent college graduates? 54%. Nearly 40% have jobs that do not pay a BA degree wage, do not even require a BA. How are they going to repay an average of $26,000 of debt? Yes, we have a debt crisis in America, not the government debt crisis, the college graduate debt crisis. So what's the solution? Economists, fight and argue about the causes of these problems, but most agree on one solution, one-word solution: innovation. And not just creating new products and services in science, technology, engineering, and math. The whole idea of innovation is that we become a nation better able to solve problems creatively. An innovator, in its final definition, is a creative problem solver. And if we can become better at solving more different kinds of problems that need solving all over the world, we will generate jobs, create wealth, add value. Now, we've always been known as a very innovative country. Why? Infrastructure, well, until recently. Liberal immigration policy, also not so good lately. Rule of law, availability of investment capital, all true. What about education? Part of the solution or part of the problem? Here's a Trivia Pursuit question I will ask and answer so fast you won't be able to Google it. What do Buckminster Fuller, the guy who invented the geodesic domes, Bill Gates, Edwin Land, the inventor of the Polar Instant Camera, Martin Zuckerberg, and Bonnie Raitt, the folk singer, all have in common? They were not college dropouts. They were Harvard college dropouts. That's different. That's very different. I mean, Steve Jobs, he was an ordinary college dropout. Michael Dell, another one. I just love doing that to Harvard. So, I became deeply concerned with this question of what must we do differently as parents, as teachers, as mentors, and as employers to develop the capabilities of many, many more of our young people to be the creative problem solvers that they want to be and that we need them to become. So with this most recent book of mine, I interviewed a wide variety of young people who were in fact creative problem solvers, all pretty much in their 20s, some from privilege, some from poverty. I then studied their ecosystems. By that I mean I interviewed all of their parents to see if I could discern patterns of parenting that had made a significant difference. I then asked each one of them, was there a teacher who'd made a real difference in your lives in helping you to become a creative problem solver? Most could name at least one. Rarely could they name more than two. And the educators were from the elementary level all the way to the graduate level. I then interviewed all of those educators. And I made what was for me a stunning and deeply troubling discovery. In every single case, the teachers that had made the greatest difference in the lives of these young innovators were outliers in their institutional settings, teaching in ways that were fundamentally different than their peers, yet I discovered as I watched them remarkably similar to one another. Then I went and visited those few schools that actually teach innovation. Didn't take me long because there aren't that many. But I went to the brand new MIT Media Lab. I went to the brand new Olin College of Engineering. I went to the D School at Stanford. I went to High Tech High in San Diego and some of the new tech high schools around the country. And again, a stunning discovery for me. In every case, the teaching and learning patterns there were remarkably similar to one another and also to what my outlier teachers were doing. Radically different than what we see in most classrooms. In fact, so much so that I've come to understand that the culture of schooling, as we've grown up with it, as we continue to practice and perpetuate it, is fundamentally and radically at odds with a culture of learning to be an innovator in 5 essential respects. Number 1, culture of schooling is all about measuring and rewarding individual achievement. Well, that's fine, except that innovation is a team sport. There is no innovation without deep collaboration, theme of our conference. Knowing this, all of these teachers whom I had interviewed had built accountable teamwork into every single assignment and evaluated students' abilities to work collaboratively as much as their individual achievement. Number 2, school is all about compartmentalizing knowledge. Science lives over there, math over there, social science, and so on, all far apart. And we reward and incent specialization. Another little problem. Innovation happens at the boundaries of the academic disciplines, rarely within them. Judy Gilbert, then director of talent at Google, said to me, if there's one thing educators must realize is that problems can neither be understood nor solved within the bright lines of individual academic disciplines. Knowing this, all of these innovation teachers built a kind of interdisciplinary problem-based approach to their curriculum. Contradiction number 3. The experience of schooling is so often a passive one and often an infantilizing and disempowering one. You spend most of your time sitting and getting, right? Listening to the one expert at the front of the room. Not so in these classes that teach real innovation. There, the emphasis is on creating, not consuming, on empowering teachers, and even more, empowering students to find real solutions to real problems. There, the teachers see themselves much more as coaches than as deliverers of academic content. Contradictions 4 and 5, I think, are the most challenging of all for us. Contradiction 4 is all about failure. You see, that's the worst thing that can happen to anybody in school. It's humiliating, it's shameful. And so we create a culture of compliance. We create a culture of risk aversion in our schools. The problem is, innovation demands that you take risks, make mistakes, and yes, fail. I went to IDEO, the most innovative design company in the world. They told me their company motto is fail early and fail often. Heck of a way to run a company. But when they explained it, it made complete sense, because you see, there is no innovation without trial and error. I went to the D School at Stanford. We were talking about this whole problem, and one teacher finally said, yeah, I'm kind of thinking F is the new A. Now, I don't recommend that for Atlanta Public Schools just yet. It's a little bit of work, but the whole point being, though, that the student who may have tried and taken a risk and tried something and, quote, failed, may actually have learned more than the straight A student who never tried anything that involved a risk. I finally went to the Olin College of Engineering, talked to a young woman there, talking about this whole issue, and she said, you know, we don't even talk about grades or failure here or GPAs. What we talk about is iteration. My new favorite word, iteration. Going from 1.0 to 2.0, or from the iPhone 5 to the 5S, coming. Iteration. But think about for a moment what we have to teach to enable kids to iterate in their work, to teach them to self-assess, to reflect on their work, what they learned, what they're going to do next, the mistakes they made, and what they've learned from them. Last contradiction has to do with motivation. Because as you know, we rely very heavily on extrinsic incentives to motivate learning. Carrots and sticks, fear of failure, rewards for good grades. But what I discovered when I interviewed these young innovators is that in every single case, again, whether they were from poverty or privilege, they were far, far more intrinsically motivated, wanting to make a difference more than they did want to make a lot of money. Then I went back and tried to understand, what had their parents done? What had their teachers done to reinforce these intrinsic motivations? And again, I found a pattern. In every case, both parents and teachers had explicitly encouraged and reinforced three things: play, passion, and purpose. Parents encouraged much more discovery-based play with fewer structures, fewer time constraints, fewer toys, toys without batteries, limiting screen time. Teachers building a spirit of play into their curriculum. Ed Carrier, teaching engineers at Stanford, said to me, it's very important to bring an element of what he called whimsy into his projects for his students. As these young people grew older, their parents were very intentional in observing carefully what was it that most interested them, what intrigued them, what got their children curious. Because they understood that for a young person to find and pursue a real passion was much more important than academic achievement. Because it's in the pursuit of real passion that you best learn what we are now calling grit, persistence, tenacity, focus, self-discipline, the will to put in the 10,000 hours to get really good at something. Teachers the same. They built time into their curriculum for students to ask their own questions, create their own investigations, or just learn more or get better at something that interested them. And as these young people grew older, it's very striking. Their passions morphed, they evolved, but in every case, they matured into a deeper sense of purpose, a desire to in some way give back or make a difference. That happened because both parents and teachers of these young innovators had instilled one simple lesson. The idea being that we are not here on this earth just for ourselves. We have some responsibility, even in a small way, to give back or make a difference. And we have a job to do, which is to understand and empathize with people who are very different and often less fortunate than ourselves. There's a lot that we could say about what all this means for education, and indeed, I have another talk tomorrow morning where I'm going to talk about the specific skills you need to be an innovator and how we must transform, not incrementally improve, transform our education system in order to enable young people to be the innovators I'm describing. But let me suffice it to say right now, first and foremost, what we need is a new understanding of the ultimate goal of education. We talk over and over again about all kids being college ready, as if going to college is going to solve the employment problem for them. Well, for those who find jobs, maybe, but the recent data are very, very discouraging. Increasingly, more and more structured jobs, even white-collar jobs, even jobs that have been traditionally good careers like law, offshored, automated, outsourced. College is not going to be the answer of and by itself for many of our kids. No, they need something more than being college ready. They need to be innovation ready. So I suggest that we leave this conference talking and thinking about what does it mean for all kids to be innovation ready? What does that mean for us as parents, as teachers, as mentors and employers? Well, I have to end with a little personal story about my own struggles around innovation. You know, Bob Compton, who's a venture capitalist turned filmmaker, and I made a film about Finland's education system, which is the best in the world, no question, where they do, in fact, graduate kids innovation ready. Remarkable system. We had great fun making a documentary together. I was invited to Singapore. Bob came along, thought we'd make a film about Singapore, decided, nope, there's no story we want to film here. But we were talking in the cafe a couple of years ago, and I was telling him about this new book I was working on. And he said, Tony, you can't just write a book about innovation. That's what academics do. You've got to be innovative. I said, what does that mean, Bob? So he came up with this really cool idea. He said, look, how about you persuade your publisher of this new book, Creating Innovators, to put QR codes and Microsoft tags throughout the book, and I will shoot a series of short videos that can be called up with anyone who has a smartphone with the right software. So he did. He shot more than 70 videos. So I want to end this short talk with sort of introducing you to some of my young innovators and some of the other people whom I introduced via video. Brought along a little video trailer that will give you a flavor for the kinds of things that people are talking about with respect to innovation. But most importantly, I think what you'll hear and see is why it is critical to our children's future and the future of our country. Can we roll that tape, please?
How important is innovation? How important is oxygen to life?
If America doesn't produce high imagination people, we are going to be a very poor country.
Raising someone with an intention that they'll be an innovator is actually different than raising a child that you want to behave all the time and be quite compliant.
Some of the people that are the most rambunctious seem to sometimes have the best ideas.
I want to feel like what I'm doing every day matters.
Of course, my guidance counselor told me to go straight to college. My dream manager might not have told me to do that.
I came to Tulane because I really wanted to go to a university that was committed to public service.
The philosophy of High Tech High is founded largely on the idea of kids making, doing, building, shaping, and inventing stuff.
The MIT Media Lab spend far less time in formal classrooms learning theory and far more time on projects building things.
Knowledge, in a sense, is a commodity. You can get this on Google. It's about asking the right questions. It's about having the right insights and perceptions.
Let them fail, because they're going to learn more from that than we could ever teach them directly.
Our success is measured more or less by the rate of innovation.
Thank you all very much. I look forward to being a part of the conversations in the coming days. Thank you.